Hello, and welcome to Algebra Unit 3, Concept 2, Lesson 6. Today, scholars will factor trinomials in the form ax squared plus bx plus c. You'll notice now we have something multiplying with our leading term. So we have an a in addition to our b and our c. So there are a couple different ways to do this. I'm going to introduce you to two of those today. The first one is simply to factor out the greatest common factor. So let's look at this first one. I can see that these all have a common factor of 5. If I factor out the 5, I get 5 times x squared minus 7x plus 10. Well, I can factor that because I can find two numbers that multiply to 10 and add to negative 7. So that becomes 5 times x minus 2 times x minus 5. Easy enough. We just had that extra step of pulling out our GCF before we go any further. Let's look at the next one. In this case, I have a 6x as our common factor. If I factor out the 6x, I'm left with x squared plus 5x plus 4. Well, two numbers that multiply to 4 and add to 5 are simply 1 and 4. So now I have 6x times x plus 4 times x plus 1. Not too hard. Like I said, you just have that first step of taking out the greatest common factor like we did in Lesson 4. What if they don't have a common factor? The other way of doing this is called factoring by grouping. So remember that this is ax squared plus bx plus c, because we're going to need to know this. So we are going to look for a factor pair of AC. So I need the factors of AC that add to B. So I need factors of A times C that add to B. So let's look at this first one. I need factors of 10 times 3. So I need factors of 30. This is factors of 30 that add to 17. Well, that's pretty easy, right? 15 and 2 add to 17. So what I'm going to do then is I'm actually going to break this up. I'm going to break this up into 10x squared plus 2x plus 15x plus 3. All I did was separate the 15x into 2x and 15x, or the 17x into 2x and 15x. Now, I'm going to factor out the greatest common factor out of each part of this. So from 10x squared plus 2x, I get 2x, and what's left in here is 5x plus 1, plus, over here I can take out a 3, which leaves you with 5x plus 1. And then I'm just going to rewrite this as 2x plus 3 times 5x plus 1. Not super difficult, but it does take some thinking. So let's look at the next one. Now I need a factor pair of negative 42. So I need things that multiply to negative 42. So the factors of negative 42, they need to add to 1. So factors of negative 42 that add to 1 would be positive 6 and negative 7. No, other way around. Sorry. Negative 6 and positive 7. They add to 1. So I'm going to rewrite this as 2x squared minus 6x plus 7x plus, minus 21. You change colors to make sure it's very clear where I'm writing these, sorry. So, now I'm going to take these two sections and factor them separately. I'm going to factor out the greatest common factor of 2x squared minus 6x is 2x. And I'm left with x minus 3 plus Greatest factor there is going to be 7. Again, I'm left with x minus 3. So this becomes, just going to come over here. This becomes 2x plus 7 times x minus 3. Not too hard. Let's go on to the next one. This time we're going to practice. Again, I need to look first at, do I have a greatest common factor? And yes, I do. I can factor out a 5. So if I factor out a 5, I'm left with 3x squared minus 2x minus 1. But that doesn't help me. It doesn't factor out the whole thing. But that's okay. I can leave that there. So I need two numbers that multiply to negative 3 and add to negative 2. And that's just going to be negative 3 and positive 1. So I have 5 times 3x squared minus 3x plus x minus 1. 5 times 3x times x minus 1 plus, get factor out a 1 there because we don't have a common factor. 1 minus 1. So that gives me 5 times 3x plus 1 times x minus 1. Not too bad. It just takes a minute to think things through. Let's go on to another practice. What about here? I do not have a greatest common factor, so there is no GCF. So all I'm looking for is two numbers that multiply to 70 and add to 17. Well, that's pretty simple, right? It's just going to be 10 and 7. So this is 35x plus 7x plus 10x plus 2. If you want to ask how I know which one to put first, I just sort of look at, okay, 35 would share more factors with 7 than with 10, but either way you can put it, you'll still get the same thing. Oh, 7x squared, sorry. So, again, I'm factoring by section. 7x squared plus 7x, I can pull out a 7x. I'm left with 5x plus 1. Over here, I can only pull out a 2, so I'm left with 2 times, look at that, 5x plus 1. So again, I'm just going to factor out the 5x plus 1, and I'm left with 7x plus 2. Let's try another couple practice problems. Okay, again here, I do not have a GCF. So I need to find numbers that multiply to 36 and add to 20. So I need numbers that multiply to 36 and add to 20. So I know that that's going to be 18 and 2. Again, you can just run through the factor pairs until you find a pair that works. So I have 12x squared plus 2x plus 18x plus 3. Again, I'm going to factor this by sections. So 12x squared plus 2x, I can factor out a 2x. I'm left with 6x plus 1. 18x plus 3, I can factor out a 3. I'm left with 6x plus 1. Then I'm just going to factor out the 6x plus 1. And I'm left with 2x plus 3. Again, you could always multiply these back out to double check yourself. Well, let's look here. Now we are asked to factor the trinomial to find the possible dimensions of the rectangle. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to factor out. So I've got a times c is 5 times 6, which is 30. Sorry, numbers that multiply to 30 and add to 17. Well, that's easy. That's just going to be 15 and 2. So this becomes 5x squared plus 15x plus 2x plus 6. So for this section, I pull out a 5x and I'm left with x plus 3. Over here, I pull out a 2 and I'm left with x plus 3. So my final answer is 5x plus 2 times x plus 3. Okay, so once we're factoring, we're doing it so that we can have the option to solve for x. So, in this case, I'm looking for factors of negative 24 that add to negative 5. So, factors of negative 24 that add to negative 5. So, if I have negative 8 and positive 3, they add, multiply negative 24 and add to 8. So I have 12x squared plus 3x minus 8x minus 2 equals 0. Again, factoring by parts. So 12x squared minus 3x, I can pull out a 3x. I'm left with 4x plus 1. Over here, I notice I have had both negatives, so I can pull out a negative number. I can pull out negative 2, which will leave me with 4x plus 1. And I know that because I've got two negatives, I look over here. I've got two negatives here, and when I look here, I see that I need those to be positive, so I'm going to factor out the negative. So, this becomes 3x minus 2 times 4x plus 1 equals 0. Remember that we just set each part equal to 0, so I have 3x minus 2 equals 0. And 4x plus 1 equals 0. And I just need to solve each of these. So in this case, I would get 3x equals 2. That should be an equal sign. And when I divide by 2, I get x equals 2/3. Please do not write that as a decimal because it is a non-terminating decimal. Over here, I subtract it. I get 4x equals negative 1. So x equals negative 1/4. If you wanted to, you could write that as a decimal, but I don't see a point. So there's our two values for x. One more time. Again, we are going to find things that multiply to negative 30 and add to 7. So that's just going to be a positive 10 and a negative 3. So 6x squared minus 3x plus 10x minus 5 equals 0. Here I can factor out a 3x, which leaves me with, not x, 2x minus 1, plus over here I can factor out a 5, which leaves me with 2x minus 1. So now I have 3x plus 5 times 2x minus 1 equals 0. I'm going to set each factor equal to 0 and find my solutions. Go ahead and do that on your own, and go ahead and work on your classwork.